I was standing in a hospice hallway in my scrubs when my phone buzzed with a message from my sister. 4 words: "You're not welcome at Christmas." Then 5 more that landed like a verdict: "It's only for parents now." My name is Wendy Chandler. I'm 38 years old, and my family had just voted me off my own holiday the way a town votes on a zoning variance. No hearing, no appeal, no phone call to warn me it was coming. I read the message twice. I slid the phone into my pocket. I finished my shift, because that's what nurses do. You don't get to fall apart on the clock. Then I drove home, sat down at my kitchen table, and smiled in a way that would have worried my sister if she'd seen it. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I opened my laptop and booked a balcony suite on a luxury cruise through the Caribbean, sailing straight through Christmas Day. But the cruise isn't the story. What my family did when the photos went up, and what I found out they'd been planning behind my back for 6 weeks, that's the part I still can't tell without my hands going still. To understand that text, you need to understand my life. I've been a hospice nurse for 14 years. When someone's mother is dying at 2 in the morning, I'm the one they call. I sit in kitchens that smell like burnt coffee and fear, and I tell families what the next few hours will hold. I'm not soft. I'm steady. Dying people don't need you to cry with them. They need you to stay in the room. That November, I was spending 3 afternoons a week with a patient named Ruth, 81, a retired math teacher with no husband, no children, and a tongue like a paring knife. She looked me up and down the first week and said I had caretaker posture, shoulders like a coat hanger everybody uses. I liked her instantly. But you need to meet my family first, because you can't understand what they took from me until you see everything I'd already handed them. My mother, Margaret, is 67, widowed 6 years, the backbone of her church's women's circle. My brother Grant is 41, married to Brooke, who runs the PTA like a small navy. My sister Dana is 34, mother of 3, and runs our family group chat, literally named Chandler Christmas, the way Brooke runs hers. Then there's the lake house. My father built it by hand on the lake back when we were kids, and every Christmas of my life happened inside it. I'm the one who kept it running. I put up the tree the first weekend of December. I baked the ham. I bought the stocking gifts marked "From Santa" so my sister could sleep in. When Mom's knees gave out, I'm the one who drove her there with the good tablecloth folded on my lap like a flag. Last year's family Christmas card was a photo of all 5 grandkids on that porch. No adults, just the words, "The Chandler family." I remember holding that card and noticing something small and cold. I wasn't in the picture. Neither was anyone who couldn't reproduce. I told myself it was sweet. I got married at 29. From 31 to 34, my husband and I went through 3 rounds of IVF. 3 Decembers in a row, I sat in a clinic parking lot listening to a nurse, someone with my own steady voice, tell me it hadn't worked. The marriage didn't survive the 3rd round. What survived was a savings account I'd opened during the 1st round and labeled "Someday." By the time the divorce was final, it held $9,400, and I couldn't bring myself to close it. So I became the family's fixer instead. Every school pickup, every form that needed a nurse's eyes, every holiday hosted and cooked and cleaned. If I couldn't give the family children, I'd pay my dues some other way. Nobody ever said that out loud. I'd written the contract myself and signed it alone. But there was one more payment, bigger than all the rest, that nobody in that group chat knew about. But I had no idea how bad it was about to get. December 3rd, a Wednesday, 4:40 in the afternoon. I was charting in a hallway when the group chat lit up. Dana's message was long and clearly rehearsed, which somehow made it worse. The lake house had felt chaotic last year, she wrote. The kids' magic had to come first. After talking it over, those words, they decided to try something new. Christmas at the lake house is just for the parents and kids this year. Then, in its own little bubble, the sentence I will recite on my deathbed. It's only for parents now. She added a heart emoji. She added, "You understand, right? You're the cool aunt. We'll do lunch in January." 35 Christmases in that house, and I'd been rescheduled like a dental cleaning. I watched the reactions roll in. Grant gave it a thumbs up. Brooke posted a clapping Santa gif. My mother, whose porch lights I hang every November, whose medication list lives in my purse, said nothing. Silence in my family is a vote. I called Dana the next night and did something more embarrassing than fighting back. I negotiated. I offered to cook the whole dinner and leave before it was served. I offered a motel in town, just to slip in Christmas morning and watch the kids open the stockings I fill every year. Though I didn't say that part. Dana was sweet through the whole thing, which is how she always wins. "It's not personal," she said, in the voice she uses on her daughter when she wants a snack before dinner. "It confuses the kids having extra adults hovering." Extra adults. 38 years old, and I'd just been reclassified as surplus furniture. Then, because Dana always says one sentence too many, she added, "Honestly, we all talked about it, and everyone agreed it's healthier." I went still. Everyone agreed. When did everyone agree, Dana? A pause. The exact pause I hear at work when a family is about to lie about how a fall really happened. "It came up organically," she said. "Organically. In my family, nothing has ever come up organically except cancer." That Saturday, I drove to my mother's with a casserole, because in the Midwest, you can't confront anyone without a covered dish. She wouldn't hold my eyes. "Don't make waves, honey," she said before I'd even taken my coat off. "It's one Christmas." I asked if she'd been in the room when the new rule was invented. She straightened her stack of Christmas cards instead of answering. "It's what's best for the children," she said, which is the church version of pleading the fifth. That night I made a decision that would change everything. 9 days after the text, my 12-year-old niece called me on video to show me her science fair volcano. Mid-eruption, casual as a weather report, she said, "Mom said you're not coming since Halloween. Did you really tell Grandma Christmas is dumb now?" I kept my voice level. 14 years of practice. "Since Halloween, sweetheart?" "Yeah," she said. "There's a whole planning chat. You're not in it, I think." I was not in it. After we hung up, I sat very still and did the math I'd been avoiding. Halloween was 6 weeks back. 6 weeks of me hanging my mother's porch lights, driving her to cardiology appointments, picking up nieces from school. While a second room, one I wasn't invited into, quietly decided I was clutter. And the detail that took my breath away, my mother was in that chat. She'd known for 6 weeks. She'd let me climb her ladder and check her heart and say absolutely nothing. You can survive being wounded by your family. What buckles your knees is learning the wound was scheduled, put on a calendar, discussed, agreed to, while you were out buying their kids stocking gifts. That night, I went to Ruth's room and for once told a patient the truth about my own life. She listened the way she must have once watched students take exams, missing nothing. Then she told me her own story. 50 years teaching other people's children, braces paid, textbooks bought, 30 years of hosting Thanksgiving with the good silver. Then her hip went, and she couldn't host anymore. She'd had exactly one visitor in months, 20 minutes, one photo for a fundraiser. "I spent my whole life buying my seat at their table," she said, turning her teacup a slow quarter turn. "Turns out I was only ever renting." The clock in her room was loud. "Rent comes due every month forever," she said. "The moment you can't pay, the chair's gone, and they act like it was never there." She looked at me, and for the first time her voice went gentle. "You're the best math I've seen in years, and you're doing it for people who round you down." I realized then, no one was coming to save me. I had to save myself. I opened my laptop that night, not to write a speech. I've watched 100 families give speeches over hospital beds, and speeches are for the speaker. I opened it because a travel ad had been following me around the internet like a hopeful dog. A woman alone at a ship's rail, gold water, no opinion anywhere in the frame. 7 nights, Eastern Caribbean, sailing December 2003. 1 balcony suite left, a holiday cancellation, king bed, a bathtub I hadn't owned in 9 years, just under $5,000. I logged into my savings and pointed the transfer at the account labeled Someday. $9,400 that had been sitting in the dark for 4 years, waiting for a child who was never coming. Someday, it turns out, has a date if you're brave enough to pick one. I picked December 23rd. I paid in full, and then I renamed the account. Now, Week by week, quietly, I put my life in order. I handed off my patients with notes so detailed the relief nurse laughed out loud. I bought a white sundress, the first white thing I'd owned since my wedding. Ruth demanded the itinerary, checked the ship's tonnage like she was grading it, and pronounced the whole plan adequate. From Ruth, a standing ovation. I kept the announcement small. 2 lines in the family thread, 5 days before I flew, confirmed. I'll be away for the holidays. Enjoy the lake house. You'd have thought I'd announced a felony. My mother called 4 rings later and asked only one question. Not was I okay. Not where was I going. People will ask where you are, honey. What am I supposed to tell them? I looked out at the parking lot, at a plastic snowman glowing brave and stupid in the cold, and felt strangely calm. I wasn't invited. Silence on the line. Then, "That's not fair, Wendy. Nobody said you weren't." She stopped because we both knew the next word was welcome, and neither of us could survive her saying it. They had no idea what was coming. Christmas morning, the sea was a blue that looked rude to describe to people back in Ohio. I put on the white dress. A woman I'd met at the solo travelers table took my phone and told me to stand at the rail. "You're going to want to remember being this free." The photo was simple. Me, laughing, coffee in hand, ocean gold behind me. I want to be honest about what was in me when I posted it, because this part matters. It wasn't revenge. If it had been revenge, the caption would have had a blade in it. What I finally typed was just this: "Merry Christmas from someone who finally spent it exactly where she was wanted." No names, no story. I hit post and went to breakfast, believing foolishly that I'd shared a photo of a woman on vacation. By the next morning, there were 41 messages waiting. Not one of them said Merry Christmas. Dana first. Wow, real classy on Christmas. Then, 20 minutes later, "You couldn't give us one holiday without making it about you." I'd been formally removed from the holiday, and my absence was somehow still about me. Brooke, in full committee voice, "Your mother sat through the Christmas Eve service getting asked why her daughter is on a boat. You've embarrassed her in front of the entire congregation." Then Grant called, pre-oiled and reasonable. "Nobody's mad," he opened, which is what people say when everybody's mad. "But you've made your point. Take the post down, apologize, and everyone moves on." I asked him, calm as a chart review, to walk me through exactly what in a photo of me drinking coffee was the attack. He couldn't finish the sentence. There was no way through it that didn't convict somebody. And then the room went completely silent, because that same week, my family sent a new message, long, formatted, unmistakably drafted by committee. Delete the posts, apologize to Dana, apologize to Mom, in person, before the congregation heard any more. Or, in their words, the family will have to reconsider your involvement in family matters going forward, including Mom's affairs. Mom's affairs. The medication list in my purse, the cardiology appointments on my calendar, the 6 years and $40,000 of secret payments keeping the lake house afloat, which not one of them knew about. They thought they were about to fire me from the job none of them had ever offered to help with. They thought my usefulness was their leverage. They had no idea I'd already done the arithmetic. That night, I called my bank. Auto pay canceled, effective immediately. The loan, the taxes, the insurance, all 3 lines, 6 years and $40,000, ended in under 9 minutes from a deck chair in the Caribbean. Then I wrote my mother a private letter, no audience, no group thread, telling her the whole truth of the last 6 years and setting the only terms that had ever needed to exist. "I will always show up for you as your daughter. I am done showing up as your staff." I mailed it with the one thing I couldn't bring myself to carry anymore. The brass key my father had cut for me 22 years ago, so I could always let myself in. The lake house sold that spring. Nobody else could carry the payment, and I let it go, and I grieved it anyway. You can be certain and sad at the same time. Nobody tells you that. My mother drove herself to my apartment one gray Sunday in February, holding an old cookie tin, and stood in my kitchen for the first time in the 4 years I'd lived there. She didn't apologize. Her generation was never issued the words. What she said was, Your father gave you that key so you could always let yourself in. I forgot the house was never the point. It was me. This Christmas, my apartment held more people than chairs. Coworkers, a neighbor, friends I'd met because of one photograph, and one place setting left empty on purpose for whoever needs it next. My mother arrived at 6 with the blue tin and asked where I wanted her. Anywhere, I said. At my table, there is no only. A seat you have to keep paying for was never yours. The only table that's truly yours is the one where love doesn't come with an invoice.